Welcome back. Time to act is now. And we're talking about HIV and AIDS. Of course, the world celebrated the World AIDS Day on 1st of this month. We've been talking about the history of HIV and AIDS in Kenya, but right now we want to look at the present moment and what we can do. Let's start with you, Millicent.
Yes.
Of course, right now you are in the forefront. You're talking to young people out there, and you're telling them, you know what, there is life after this. But personally, what do you do on a daily basis that a young person who is actually watching can say, I can pick that, I can pick that? What do you do?
What I do on daily basis is to say each and every day has a blessing. When you do something for a day, you either bless someone or impact on someone's life. What I do is I write, and that's why I decided to write my first poem entitled Accept Yourself. It was in 2014 on 24th of February when I first wrote my autobiography. After writing the autobiography, I decided, no, I'm not going to stop there. I have a story to tell the world, and the story to tell the world is to write something to the world. And that's why I wrote my first poem entitled Accept Yourself by Mercy Millicent.
Wow. So, whoa, you're writing already.
Yes.
So you're keeping also yourself busy
Yeah.
with something that you love.
Yes.
You love writing.
Yeah.
So that is a very key point there. You can pick that your mind ought to be engaged on a consistent basis, on a daily basis. Mr.
She
B.
said first, the aim of this is about accepting yourself.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is very, very
Accepting
important.
that this is the situation.
That's me. I am accepting myself the way I am and the state I am in. That's her number one. But now,
On your side.
yes, I think it's first to take it that people can get sick, and that they are sick. And personally, when I talk to young people, I tell them, you know, there is something called HIV and AIDS. And you must first understand that is the case.
It is real.
Yeah. And even when we employ house help, the first thing I tell them, even the gardener when we hire, is that I want you first to know there is that situation in Kenya. And you need to think about it, you know. When I'm in an organization like this, probably because we got here new, but I have been keeping that I'm going to tell everybody. You find like young girls who are having children, that means that you could have gotten it. Yeah? And next time you could also get it when you know. And you have not even known the status of that man. Yeah? You exposed yourself without actually thinking. So that is the first step, that the opportunities we have. We first tell our young people here, are you aware that there is this HIV and AIDS in Kenya? And you know there are a number of ways it's gotten. One way is that people who are born like you,
Mother to child.
mother to child,
Yes.
and there are those again through use of where blood could be involved, either transfusion and or people who are not proper doctors and they cut maybe a circumcision and all these there are many ways people can get it.
Yeah.
It's not only when it is a kind of immorality of some kind. People can get many ways, including there are times where we have found somebody on the road hit by a car you are trying to save, and he is bleeding, and maybe you have a little wood. And so we need to know that it's like Kenya is being attacked from all sides by this enemy called HIV and AIDS. And it's up to all of us, not just to be quiet and sit, but you ask yourself, what am I going to do today? So we start where we are, either in your corporate, you make sure this is one of the things that is discussed, whether is in your NGO, whether is government offices, and whether is the churches. Even churches, you find nobody talks. I'm sure in your church nobody talks about it.
Nobody talks about it.
Yeah.
My concern is here.
Yeah.
Of course, statistically speaking, this year, shocking reports here that shocking report that half of the adolescent population in the world who die because of HIV and AIDS actually come from just 6 countries. And unfortunately, Kenya is one of those countries. And there is a culture that says, you know what, we are very actively, we are very active in terms of our sexuality. And so for us, we want to engage, and there are contraceptives. And in fact, the fear has been, it's better I even not get pregnant. Actually, it's better for me to have sort of HIV and AIDS rather than pregnant, because if I am pregnant, it is known to everyone. But HIV, well, we can always control it because we have all these drugs. And by the way, I will still use a contraceptive. What is your perspective on that as a young person?
Yeah, as a young person, I would say many of young people are now having HIV. The majority are in Kenya. Reason being is because in school, the issue of HIV, teachers are not that open to students, talking to them about HIV and AIDS. This thing need to be real. Teachers need to, maybe a day or even some minutes, just talk to people about their students about HIV and AIDS, because they need to continue creating an awareness on HIV AIDS. HIV AIDS is not a one-day thing that you'll talk and then someone gets to keep it in his or her mind. It's something you need to remind a person that you remember HIV is there. And HIV, the only way to prevent yourself from getting the disease, because even though they say it's a disease like malaria or any other, but no, it's something that will cost you for the rest of your life. So, to young people, message, abstain from sex. Remember, sex was meant for marriage, and marriage is a ministry. So when you get to that man, remember, you're already married to that person. When you're having sex with that man, you're already married to that person. Of which that should not be the case here. That because there are contraceptives and all that, I can still get the disease. I want to buy the idea. I'll tell them abstain from sex. And when you realize you're HIV positive, accept who you are. Because regardless of whichever situation you are, but the case now, the ball is in your court. Because it's only a choice to either accept or not. If you accept, it's for the better side, and if you don't accept, it's also for the bad side. If you accept yourself, you'll be able to tell people, or you'll be able, firstly, to adhere to your medicines. These are ARVs, known as, we have lamivudine, zidovudine, and we have Septrin. Those diseases, the drugs cannot work in your body while you're stressed up. You're like, I'm taking the medicines, but I haven't accepted who I am. There are no way the medicines can work in your body.
Cooperate as well.
You have to cooperate as well by accepting who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
All right. Of course, Mr. B, there was a time we were talking about abstinence,
Yeah.
be faithful,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
use a contraceptive.
Yeah.
But these days we don't necessarily
Yeah.
talk about
Yeah.
abstinence or being faithful.
Yeah.
In fact, the message is
Yeah.
use a contraceptive.
Yeah. Yes.
Is that the way to go?
Well, I think I advocate that use all the means.
Use all of them.
Because when you are in a war, you cannot say, because I have a panga and I don't have a gun and the enemy is coming, let me just stay like that. Because we know very well there are people who will not abstain. That is the truth. It's all,
Regardless of how much we talk to them.
okay, it's good to have all the moral side of that. But we know this society, and even other society, don't be told about the 6 countries. Yeah.
They're just trying to put us
Like
together.
UK, it has one of the highest teenage pregnancies in the world, in the UK, which means they were still exposed. Yeah. So for me, is that people who are more on the moral side, they use moral weapon. Those who cannot use those moral weapons because that is the way they have grown, that is their lifestyle, let them use whatever means that can help them at least live, because this will attack them and they will die young. And there is a program I would like to mention I started. It's called New Dawn. Many people don't know I started it. Because even my daughter, children, she told me they are in New Dawn. And then I didn't know that. But this New Dawn, I was very concerned about 2 things. What about people who have not reached that adolescent age? They are children like 9 years, like 10 years, but they are moving towards there. So I said, here we can stop possibility of this 9-year-old, 10-year-old, 11 and 12 get to that stage where they could have HIV. So I said, if you start with children like that, if they were born with it, it has already now surfaced. Yeah. And if they know how they can live life of dignity, and they can help each other, and they can discuss all those issues. So there was an AIDS conference in at the river, communication. Now is university there. So the conference was there. So I said I am going to share about how we can create a society without AIDS. Wow. And it was to focus on these children from 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It was a very short paper, and the one lady called Mrs. Tongoi came and said, Bidan, I would like to implement this idea. Wow. And I said, go ahead. God gives me a lot of ideas. I cannot implement all of them. So it has become also a very big movement, even in other countries. And that way, and a New Dawn, I should have said, is like using peer kind of relationship. Why? All my years as a journalist, like he says, of 30 years, I used to ask young people, how did you start taking drugs? And they always refer to my friends. Then when I was in prison, I would ask criminals, how did you become a criminal? They always refer to their friend, how they took me, how they said that there is another way of earning without too much. You know, carpentry takes a long time before you can get enough money. So I said, this friendship thing is very powerful in African culture and the Asian culture. How can we use it? So, to form a new dawn group, you ask this child of 9 years, who is your best friend? And indicates is so and so. Then you ask that friend who comes in, apart from this one, who is your other best friend apart from this? I said this one. When they get to 7, that is one new dawn group.
Wow.
And because of the peer relationship, it's a very solid group. And they make commitment that if any of them would ever get that disease, they will come also to support. They will not abandon that person. So there are many active things we can do. I think she mentioned schools, teachers, but often why people don't do it is because they are also victims. Teachers are worried about themselves because they are also not in that state where they can say, I'm sure I will not get HIV. So we need a new movement, like what we are talking about, trees for birthday.
We need a new movement.
A new movement led by
Millicent.
you, Millicent. Don't think you are a very powerful leader.
Sure.
And I hope with his, royal voice, he can read some of the stanzas here.
Sure.
Because I would like him to read.
Wow.
And I think you lead that new movement because now Mr. B has tried to do what I could. Now is your turn, and we will give you support. This media is there for you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So perhaps because of time, I'll just read 2 stanzas so that we appreciate the work of Millicent, and definitely we'll be designing some of the poems so that at least we give you a pictorial presentation of the same. Now this is her poem titled Accept Yourself, and it says, love makes me joyful, happiness makes me smile, thoughts make me wonder of why not to accept myself, that this is me and my life. My bitterness on HIV and AIDS paralyzes me. It keeps me bound, a state where no new levels are taken, pursued or attained, of why not to accept myself, that this is me and my life. Wow. And it continues on and on and on. And definitely this is a message all of us ought to listen to. Because as Mr. B says, as long as we are in this world, there is no way we can put a guarantee that we cannot be infected. And that is why we ought to be part of the war, of the fight against HIV and AIDS. And what do? We embrace each other and walk together. Friday with Mr. B. This is the place. This is the moment, talking to Mr. Biden Bogo, a journalist over 30 years, telling you his experience and talking about his commitment to see a better Kenya. And why does he do that? Purely out of the love he has for this country. So let us embrace that. See you next time.